Hello?
And going around the city with the penny, all right? Also, I want to thank board members who worked diligently and the elected officials that really, worked to pass this penny. It was a really a coordinated effort. And the board members were really active in the community. We got no pushback, no gripes. All the community organizations were on board. So I'd like to put that in the record and thank the employees for the system. Because literally, parents are right. Anybody sign up?
Oh, we have one person that signed up.
Oh, it's there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon on this rather soggy day. First of all, it's come to our attention that if you will recall, before we got the multicolored bus stop signs, the bus stop signs were blue and white for you older people who may remember. Well, one of our riders found two of the blue and white signs still up on South Holly Street. One is at the corner of South Ott and South Holly on a pole, I assume a telephone pole. The other one is on the northbound side of South Holly near Kennedy or Prentice Streets. This one is behind a tall hedge, so it may be a little hard to see, but they tell me that it's on a stand and probably needs to be removed. Secondly, in view of the fact that the parking fee is going to be increased in downtown Columbia, I think this may be a good time to promote the soda cap and other buses that run downtown as an alternative to having to pay the $1.50 or whatever it is now for the parking fees. Thirdly, a few of our riders have told us that the 801 may not be running every 30 minutes during the peak hours. Just check into that. I don't have any actual proof on that, but that's just what we heard. I want to reiterate what Mr. Fergus has said about the penny tax. We are very happy that it passed, and there again, we didn't hear any pushback either, so it's a good thing. And lastly, I just want to thank the Comet and the board again for allowing us to participate in your meetings, and hope that we can continue on doing that in the future. Thank you.
We have Ms. Sterling scheduled to speak for public.
Good afternoon. Jamila Sterling, member of the public. In line with what he said, yes, I'm grateful that the penny tax, we got it, passed. Those elderly, poor, Black, veterans, any other demographic that I know I come in here and say it all the time, and this side of the room gets upset when I say it, that, we're not catered to, or no one cares about us or dislikes us, but we got that passed. All those groups are the ones that got that passed, but also we don't want stuff like what happened the day after Thanksgiving happening, where a bus driver who on his one-way trip broke down twice. And it wasn't until you brought him a USC bus that he was able to complete that trip coming out to the mall. So I'm standing at the mall. He had already broken down twice, and you brought him a replacement bus twice. So stuff like that, I'm not going to stop saying it until stuff like that stops happening. When we're the ones riding and we're the ones, being suffered from broken down equipment. So other than that, earlier this year, another woman from the public mentioned, can we use the big TVs down at the depot on Sumter Street and stream the public board meetings? I second that, or can we revisit that for the new year? But sorry, I'm gonna still go into the new year saying the comment as a collective do not care about those demographics or those groups that I mentioned. But let's work on using that TV because it's not used for anything. So can we use the TV to show this so that more people can participate and help y'all out? Y'all wouldn't have to meet at the library what you guys were doing. If you guys would schedule the board meetings, show them down there, that might help y'all out a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Service update.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone. Happy holidays. First, I want to start out by just recognizing two of our great employees for November and December, Mr. Ronnie Gibson. He's very dedicated bus stop technician, he's employee of the month, and Mr. Shedrick Whitfall for this month. He's a newer operator, so he's excellent. Well respected from his peers and from the public. And of course, these individuals get a parking space out front, which they love, and also a cash prize and recognition. So again, we wanted to give them shout out to them. And also they'll be now eligible for Employee of the Year. And we'll work through Employee of the Year for 2024. As far as our on-time performance, we saw an increase from October to November. However, for all intents and purposes, it's flat. We do know there's work being done in that area, so we're excited for that to be looped into that work and to be a part of that going into next year. One great thing I'm doing as well, not in conjunction with that, but something that we need to do is working on a plan now to address our headcount challenges through 2024. We're going to be ramping things up to start out next quarter. So I'll be sharing that written report out to the comments so they can see my plans on that. I mean, we've been here before. We're just back around again. So I'm pretty excited to get that ramped up in addition to working through the on-time performance and kind of work hand in hand there. We've really seen some very positive milestones in our safety areas in reference to preventable accidents, workers' compensation claims. So we are very excited to know that where we started, where we ended in 23 and where we're going to start in 25, we made great improvements in that area through constant safety messaging and training. So we're in a very good place there. That completes my report. I mean, I'm open for any questions on my report.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And the motion period. Oh, I did skip Miss Dr. Prentice.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to share with you some updates regarding the agency's safety plan. And a copy of the plan is found on pages 40 through 117 of your packet. And I want you to know that I have presented the safety plan to the Central Midlands Council of Government for their approval, so it can be a part of their planning process as well. Just to share a little bit of history review, FTA required operators of public transit to develop a safety plan, and we have a compliance date of July 2020. And during that time frame, we received monies from SCDOT to assist with developing the plan. So we hired a consultant, and consultant developed the safety plan that you see in your packet. In 2023, FTA made changes to their regulations. They wanted us to go back and establish a safety committee so that they could have input on the plan. At that time, we already had a safety committee in place, but we just revisited the individuals we had on the committee and we made some adjustments. The safety plan is basically implemented by our safety and training manager who works with RATP Dale. And the safety committee meets on a monthly basis to discuss safety operations and any other issues or concerns. And I serve as the liaison between the safety officer and the executive director. And the plan is reviewed on an annual basis by the safety committee. And I serve on the safety committee along with Ms. Bowers. And we just have a few updates, and they're not significant at all. The updates basically just consist of a change in the executive director. When we submitted the last plan or the last update, it was signed off by our former director, Leroy Champs. So now we have Mr. Pearl as our executive director, so we just need to change his name. And also doing the training review, when we had that review, it was suggested that we add a section in dealing with infectious diseases. So we add that section in. So those are basically the two changes to the plan for the update. And the requirements that the board of directors approve any updates that we make to the plan. So therefore, that's why I'm presenting it today and ask for your consideration in approving the Central Midlands RTA safety plan. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is not here, nothing from the service committee, anything from finance?
Mr. Burgess.
Who did I miss?
I think Ms. Prince needs a motion.
Oh, you needed a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So move.
Second.
I'm sorry, we're making a motion on
The
Would you
update
say,
safety
Prince?
plan to approve the
updating the plan. Okay, I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I did.
Okay. Who second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, Mr. Barnwell.
Yeah.
Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Ms. Bleaton.
Yes.
Ms. Herbert.
Yes.
Representative Howard. Dr. Morris.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Gracio. Mr. Unbank. Mr. Walker. And Mr. Perry's.
Back to you, man.
Sure. So Finance Committee met, I think twice. It's the last board meeting, and a regular scheduled meeting and then a special call meeting. Regular scheduled meeting, we had our standing Finance Committee items, a review of finance through, at that point, I think we were through September. So we've received information from our CFO on performance through September. Got our GBE update from Dr. Prince. And one thing that we've added to our finance agenda is a quarterly update on grants. So Ms. Ransom's doing a great job of kind of keeping us updated on federal grant programming, which, as we all know, can be multi-year, span years, and very complicated process. So I appreciate Ms. Ransom's refreshing our memory on how that all works and where we stand. We did have some action out of the committee, the request for us to review several capital purchases. So bus lifts, garage doors, and then in a special call meeting, we considered, I'm not sure if I'm using the term correct, the cutaway bus.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the cutaway bus purchases. And the committee recommended that the full board approve each of those three purchases. I don't need a motion out of the committee. Is there any comment, I guess, from finance or?
Sorry.
Do we need anything? I mean, so I guess the committee recommended that we make those three purchases. It was bus lifts and garage doors for our maintenance shop, and then we have some very dated old buses and for the paratransit. And so the committee recommended that we begin a purchasing process to replace those. I think the idea is to replace about a quarter of them every year, something like that.
So you need a motion to adopt the committee's recommendation.
And so
I have a question. On those buses, don't we have a process in place to do that? Wasn't a process in place to purchase buses?
I think those had not been addressed in some time. So I think the finance committee took it up again to implement a process of replacing them about a quarter of a time at a time over the next several years.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes.
I have some concerns about this. First, it was not planned well. And second, we don't do business like that. If you have cutaway buses, set it out, and then you will get bids, and then you return and you review that, and then you select one. We did not do that. And it's my feeling that we should send this back to the staff to correct this.
This is a single source.
Cutaway.
Yeah, I mean, with single source, we didn't have.
It's on state contract, but the procurement piece was done by the state to put it on the state contract in the first place. We do that. I mean, I think that public entities have are eligible to do that. Whether, it's I think another question whether we should at any given stage, but it's certainly within state and our own procurement policy to do so. There were 2 vendors on state contract, and I think one of the things that I think going forward, what we'll do is clearly identify what it is that what the criteria are for choosing a vendor on the state contract. I think in this case, there were particular elements related to the mechanical aspects of the buses that made that particular vendor preferred vendor, so that it did become a single source at that point. Because what I agree with you, Dr. Morris, there needs to be a process of communicating that better with the committee and then to the board.
It sounds like if it's on the state contract, it sounds like the procurement, the comment needing to do its own procurement is you don't have to because it's on the state contract. I guess it's not anything wrong with it being done that way.
It's legal. I think Dr. Morris's point, at any given point, we may want to do it a different way.
A different way, right?
Well, who's actually paying for the vehicles? Is it the state contract or is it coming out of common funds?
Common funds, we have grant funding for the vehicles.
And that's state grant funding?
Federal. And that is.
I'm going to lean to agree with Dr. Morris. It sounds like we should have checked more boxes in the procurement process, especially since there's federal grants in place.
I think a lot of agencies will use the state contract, even if it's federal funding paying for it. There's nothing wrong with that process. It's used by multiple agencies in the state. So I'm just saying from the procurement part of it.
And I will say too, as a staff member who served on the board, as a staff member of a public entity, that's the reason state contract exists.
Right.
It's often smaller entities don't have the, staffing to do the kind of robust procurement for items like this. So the state does it for us, which is, I will say that I rely on a lot at the city. So I'm of a different mind. I don't necessarily think there's a problem with the issue that we face now is that, and this was discussed at the Finance Committee, we are, if we are to get replacements in any kind of reasonable timeline, we really need to take action. And I think that's another consideration is that, and I'll let our executive director and CFO speak to this, but among the sort of benefits of state contract and among the things that I think staff considered is the turnaround time, the specs that the chosen vendor was able to provide, known maintenance problems with certain, other arrangements, other set of specs that we could have gone with. So I think given all those things, the committee made the recommendation that the board move forward. But we can take it back up. Just, we have to understand that our buses, the ones that we're trying to replace, are well beyond their useful life and create maintenance problems for us.
But the concern I have is it got to the point of an emergency. Who dropped the ball on it? Because we should never get to the point of an emergency replacement. So somebody dropped the ball. On that.
For Mr. Smith, when you think, with your experience at the city, in our experience at the city, bringing forward a motion like that in a more formal agenda item with information to review would be a good process moving forward to actually have, I don't know if it's a section, but I do think that this motion should be in writing and a formal agenda item. And not just this one, but anything where we will have to vote on spending money. The awareness of the board, I think, is very important, not to have stuff like this from us.
Is it gonna affect any timeline or anything critical if it's deferred to the January meeting?
So I would ask staff to comment on that.
And on page 163, there's a single source justification. We are purchasing the column lifts off of the state contract, as well as the other procurement that we have off of the state contract. So if we're going to review one, we should review all three going forward. The federal guidelines for the vehicles are 7 years or 200,000 miles. On page 163, you can see what the mileage is on each vehicle. This is, it isn't necessarily an emergency that we're doing, but we need to really pay attention to, it's time for us to start replacing these vehicles. Our best outlet and most prudent outlet was to go off of a state contract for the procurement for the vans. If we had not taken that route, it would be at least 2 months or 2 to 3 months for an RFP to be generated. And then we go out to the street for that. And then it has to go to a committee, and then we approve, and then negotiations from that. So we're looking at least an additional 5 or 6 months to get the vehicles.
If it's not protested.
If it's not protested. So we're being, all of the procurements that were provided or sent to the finance committee were all through the state contract. They did the negotiations, they did the procurements from the state side as well as from the federal side. And that's our most efficient way to
Purchase. Tina's got it.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Herbert, Ms. Herbert, you have your hand up?
Yes, can y'all hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right, so my question is, it says that it's entitled Single Source Justification, but as I read through it, there were 2 different vendors that were actually considered, and then based on looking at both of the vendors, a final decision was made. And maybe it's just, when I think of sole source, I think of this is the reason why you only use one. Can someone just explain that distinction to me? It seems like this went through a process, 2 available vendors, and one was chosen. How does that become a sole source?
It's not a sole source. It did go through the procurement process already with the state. We are procuring off of that. It's a single source. So it was determined to be single source based on, there were 2 vehicles that were on the state contract, and the most advantageous was the Palmetto bus sales. We currently have a split compressor system with the current DART vehicles that we have. In speaking with the maintenance manager, we are spending approximately $3,000 to $4,000 per vehicle anytime that they come in because of the air conditioning system and how it's set up with the other vehicle. And that's at least 3 or 4 times a month that we have different vehicles in. So if we add up those costs, it doesn't make sense for us to continue to go that route with this air conditioning system. Everything is set up as it is with the current contract going off of the state. And they were the most advantageous. And if we go with another vehicle, then our parts inventory goes up as well. So the main consideration in going with Palmetto Bus Sales is the air compressor system on the vans.
Thank you.
I certainly know that and hear that the staff understands the process. Just didn't plan it and do it the right way. And there's nothing wrong with going back correcting mistakes that you made. And I say, let's do it the right way.
So, and I'll just provide a little legal process for the procurement. So you could go back and the comet could do its own procurement, which might take, it could take 6 months to a year. It depends on whether or not that procurement is protested after you've gone through the process and you've awarded a contract. If the contract is protested, then it could take up to a year or more to get that resolved. Or what they elected to do in this case is to use the state contract, where the state did all the procurement, came up with the vendors, and then the Comet chose between those vendors, but the procurement process was followed. It was just conducted by the state. So those are the two processes that you can follow. And I guess what I'm hearing is the Comet opted to do the state contract because of time.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, at a baseline, it wasn't properly public notice, as far as I can see. So, I mean, whether that warrants pushing it back to another meeting, I get the effectiveness of the state contracting bulk, right? There's always economies of scale, save money. But again, at the minimum, we talk about transparency. Public notice should have been a little better on this.
Yes.
I would, since it's not on the agenda, I agree there. I think what we should do is, there is no motion on the floor, I don't think. So take no action. Send it to the finance committee, we'll agendize it again. What we can do at the finance committee, and my recommendation to our attorney's point, a full procurement for these will take a long time, and it's probably not in our best interest. We can, as a finance committee, look at the 2 vendors that are on state contract. That's well within we've done it. We took staff's recommendation, but we can do it again and maybe have a more thorough conversation about it. We may still come back with staff's recommendation, which is that this particular vendor, is the one that we should go with. But again, I just want to reiterate from a procurement standpoint, state contract exists precisely to do what our staff has recommended that we do. And I want to just be clear that there's been a lot of discussion that something was not done correctly. That's kind of an internal determination that we would like to see more upfront through the finance committee. That's not I think there's nothing incorrect about what's been done from a procurement standpoint legally. So, and I think we really get into trouble if we start to say that's what's happened, because public entities do this and what we're trying to consider here all the time. And so I agree with you on the public notice. We should we should include that as a motion.
And Mr. Smith, and when staff presents it, they present it in a clearly communicated way, why one is a better direction than the other, correct?
Well, I think that we can do that better. And I think that's why going back to finance committee next month before the next board meeting, I think it's probably a good thing. Right? So, in light of that, I don't think there's anything else out of the finance committee. Productive meetings generally, and I appreciate your staff's. And I don't want to steal thunder, but we'll receive news of a noteworthy award for our finance department. That's on the agenda for CFO to tell us about.
Mr. Chairman, as far as the federal grants go, Ms. Ransom would, if she speaks to that.
First, Andy, you said this passed the finance committee.
Well, it was recommended to the full board.
All right, you don't have, what, 5 members? It's 3 of you here, so. Yes.
I just want to let the board know that FTA has also started recommending that different agencies use state contract so they can get their vehicle quicker. They get a more standard vehicle, whereas usually when we do the RFPs and everything, we want this type of seating, this type of this type of that. We can still get that as part of that contract, but the FTA is encouraging so that we can get vehicles faster that we use state contract.
Since some effort and emergency meeting was done, I want to make a motion that we pass this.
I'm sorry, that's what?
We pass the motion that you offered to the board. Let it vote on.
They have to make a motion.
Yeah, well, you did make a motion, didn't you?
I don't think there was a motion on the floor. I think I was still in kind of discussion. We've got 3 items that the finance committee took up, and the one that's sort of, driven to all this discussion is the third, which is the cutaway buses. We also have the roll-up doors and the lifts for the maintenance shop. So, each of those, I think, it probably would be better to agendize them. I don't think I can defer to our legal as far as whether we could take a legal vote today, but I think we could either way, but I think it's cleaner and clearer and gives better public notice to do it on an agenda.
I would agree. I think from just the public notice and FOIA aspects, it probably would be better to properly agendize it for the next meeting as an action item and then take a vote on it. That's just my legal opinion.
Back from where we started. I don't understand what we're trying to get out of it. The other 2 items, I don't even know why it came to committee. That's normally not our bill to pay them. Every time maintenance gets something, it's in your bill and you send it to the finance committee. Is that the way our payments go?
Through procurements that goes through the comment. Any major procurements like this goes through the comment.
To the finance committee.
Yes, sir.
I don't think there's a problem legally with the procurement or using the state contract. I think the issue is, as Mr. Brennan stated, it could have been more accurately noticed on our agenda for today. So to cure that, I think Mr. Smith is recommending, and I agree from a legal perspective, that we properly agendize it for the next meeting and then take action on it.
But you're saying properly, you're saying that
it didn't have
not properly done this time.
the notice of the notice that action was going to be taken on it at this meeting was not properly done. Not the procurement and all of that is perfectly legal and properly done.
I still want to make that motion that we go on and approve these two things. Do I get a second? Now, this was your item now. Now you're here, so I take my motion back. This was your item.
Right, and that's why I think we should just, for clarity, bring it to the next meeting.
I think we all see the need for it.
Yeah.
I'd like to just button it up and make it formal.
So there's urgency to this, but it's not, we don't want to wait 6 to 12 months, but we can wait 1 month, I think. I think that's, that's kind of where I am on this. Like,
I don't know what's the first speak on that. Is that we're delaying a month?
Originally, it was on here and to be as an agenda item. It's proper protocol that it is on the agenda as an action item, as it should be, just to make sure that it's perfectly clear to the public. Currently, we have, just as information to the board, currently we have 5 out of the 22 DART vans that are down. We were up to 6, we're down to 5. It takes time to get parts. It takes time to fix these vehicles. So if we're delayed for a month to make sure that this is properly done, from my perspective, I definitely agree with Mr. Smith and as well as legal counsel that it should be on here agendized and for formal approval.
Everybody's in agreement with that, but I'm saying it went to finance on an emergency meeting, so it wasn't an emergency. If we get to the board where it can be approved, and we start backing up from what was already done.
The vans definitely are needed. We can't sugarcoat that. We need these vehicles in order to make sure that we provide the service that we can and need to for our clientele on the DART service.
We could use this as a cautionary tale to staff. With the amount of money we'll be spending the next 25 years, we should be very due diligent and looking for a failure, because this was an easy one. Once we do it wrong, everything gonna hit the fan. So
yes, sir.
We should use this as a cautionary tale.
I think, Mr. Fergus, there's the option of properly noticing and calling a special call meeting if you'd like, if it's to that emergency status. I would think we'd all entertain that, but that's a staff call.
And I would defer to Mr. Cooksey as well over the DART on the number of vehicles that we have, and knowing that there are at times personnel that are waiting around for another vehicle. So once we get back up to speed, we're okay. But as you see on the procurement here, those vehicles are nearing 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 miles, and there are only 4.
That's what I was hearing. And I'm hearing from legal, it's legal. So I don't see.
The procurement and using the state contract is perfectly legal and fine. The discussion here is whether or not the notice on today's agenda that we would be taking action on it was added. That's what the discussion is.
That's subjective. That's very subjective, getting down to that point.
I would say this also. I think part of what we see, or part of my hesitation in even being able to support it was just to see clarity on an understanding of making sure that we vet the other vendor as far as pricing, as far as the exacts. Apples to apples. If this vendor's charging $75,000, this vendor's charging $80,000 per vehicle per bus, just having that clarity to know that, hey, we made the best decision and we had the details to be able to make that and support that decision. As a part of my job, I look at orders from all vehicle vendors on statewide term contract, bus vendors, all that stuff. And so in my experience, I've ordered a number of these. I've seen all of those things. And so my thing was just give me an apples to apples comparison. State contract is fine, but an apples to apples comparison from both vendors on timeline, on what you can deliver, on how it can be delivered, on when it can be delivered, all of those details, and for a decision to be made by the board.
I wish you had spoken up earlier.
Count votes over there, aren't you?
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Mike has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. I do understand with Councilman Brennan, his concern about not being properly noted. The one concern that I have is that these are for the most vulnerable people of our society. Many of these have doctor's appointments that they've got to get to. And if they miss their doctor's appointment, it's another 6 months before they can get their doctor's appointment again. So if our bus service is down for them, or if they're in a wheelchair and the wheelchair clips don't work on the bus, for them to get to the doctor is a big feat. So that's the reason that I would think that this is more of an emergency than I think what is being led on. If those buses are down, those people are not getting to the doctor and they're missing their doctor's appointment and waiting maybe 3 to 6 months to get another doctor's. That's my only comment there. Thank you.
Is it back to me?
Yeah, no.
Chief Financial Officer. Yes. What will we do that we can't do today?
Well, properly noticed.
Will that get you?
Do you need a motion to schedule a special meeting? Okay.
To interject a little bit there, if we do that, then I don't think Finance Committee is going to have a chance to look back at it if that's what the will of the board is. And Finance Committee has looked at it, made a recommendation. I'm content with that. But if the board wishes for us to look at it again, we wouldn't have time necessarily if we did a special call meeting.
I still can't, and maybe it's just me, I can't see, if y'all looked at it at finance, and it was approved at finance, okay? And staff, the legal staff says it's legal. It may not, and it's in our, and we could write it better, but I don't see any reason to come back to this again. I really don't. Let's step up to the board. Delay, I really heard on the delay. I'm asked about the delay. If it's no delay and we're gonna wind up to the same point, why wouldn't we just go and approve it? We had the caution that we have to do it better in the future. I think that's good enough.
Yeah, certainly as a part of the finance committee, understand that if you put it back out there, it could take a period of time. But then on the other side of the coin, we don't know, especially than for 6 months to a year. It may only take 1 or 2 months.
I disagree, sir. Because it takes that long just for us to write an RFP because of the details that are involved with that. It takes a month or two to do that. And and then we have to put it out to the public, and then we have to grade it, and then it goes to the finance committee, and then to the board. So we're looking at a minimum of 4 months.
That would be that detail would probably require legal review, correct? So we're talking about the time it takes to get legal look at it, expense associated with that. But again, I think there's a middle ground, which is the finance committee look at the two vendors on state contract. You don't have to go back to a full procurement, and I would really, advocate that we not do that. We could, if it's the will of the board, look again at the two contracts. Sort of, what I'm saying, make the comparison, look at the objective cost, but also the not subjective, but the other big sort of the things that go into a decision in addition to cost, which would be the compressor on the HVAC or the AC unit and the turnaround time, the things that Mr. Pearl outlined in his memo to us for why they chose this vendor. We could look at that again without doing a full procurement.
But I'm saying I made the motion and you wouldn't second it, so you aren't.
I'm not seconding it because of the issue of public interest. That's why I think it needs to come back to us as the board. That's a different issue than whether or not the finance committee takes it up again. I don't care one way or the other about that.
It's notice to the public just by being on our agenda.
What item is it? You included the detail on page 164. I think that the perfect storm of emergency status and public transparency is where we're at right now. So I have full faith that our finance committee and staff vetted the process. I would like to put forward a special call meeting within the next 48 hours to move this along. And to your point, Mr. Fergus, a lesson learned, because we're going to be purchasing a lot of transportation assets moving forward. So stamping out how that is presented on the agenda and to committee members is a very, very important moving forward.
If we have a special call, finance committee meeting, then our decision or our recommendation would have to come back to the board. And we're still talking about a January meeting coming back to the board.
I think we were talking about,
Yes, Dr. Morse, I was referring to just a special called full board meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not going back and looking at the state purchasing procurement process moving forward.
But Mr. Pearl, if you say you're down 5, maybe 6, if this is delayed, could you be down 7, 8, 9?
There's always a possibility for that. Yes, I can't say that we won't. There's always a possibility. I would defer to Board Member Brennan on if we had a special called meeting regarding this, that we could tackle it properly with proper notice.
Well, you said 48 hours.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, I don't think any
delay.
of us have an interest in putting this off 30, 60, 90 days. So, I mean, that's, I'm just putting that forward, Mr. Burgess.
And it's committee chair, they need to bring us up to date on things to the board.
We'll go via the
I promise
agenda.
to do that with service. It's gonna be no ifs and buts, and stuff is going, when we bring it, it's ready to vote on.
So do we need a motion or just an agreement that Pam will make notice? Pamela will make notice in 48 for.
yeah, I think you just need someone to request, after this meeting, someone to request a special call meeting.
All right, thank you.
Moving right along. Mr. Brennan.
Yes, I want to thank the intermodal committee for meeting, Dr. Morris, Mr. Burgess. Is anybody else part of that? We
On January.
So the staff put out RFPs for a design consultant and planning consultant for a future intermodal facility for consideration. We received those in and did evaluations and interviews of the two design consulting firms. So we're in the process of gathering those scorecards, giving those to staff for them to officially bring forward a consultant for us to vote on at full board. Is that correct, Mr. Pearl?
Yes, sir. We will, after the grading is completed, it'll be taken to the intermodal committee for approval. And once that's approved, then we'll have to start negotiations. And then once negotiations are complete, then we'll take it to the finance committee and then to the full board.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for intermodal. So I think we were discussing this earlier. Vision 2040 did its job. Thank you to everybody who participated in that. I would like for us to start considering combining intermodal and Vision 2040 to be not an oversight committee, but a committee that works to make sure that the goals put forward by the comment towards the penny projects is managed, and that we participate as a board, seeing that our promise to the public is being fulfilled. So I look forward to discussing that with Madam Chairwoman Teresa. I know she appointed the boards or the committees, and putting together some sort of hybrid committee moving forward that brings all that into one. That's all I have on Vision 2040.
Executive staff updates, Mr. Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've attended a couple of the COG meetings, technical board and rural committees. Participated in a WXRY interview regarding the penny tax, in addition to a lot of the other events that we held. And to go along with your comments regarding staff participation, several staff members showed up to a couple of the meetings that we held out in the public, and I appreciate their support in doing that, as well as board members as well. So that went really well, and very appreciative of that. Attended a Columbia Chamber breakfast introducing Major General Hood. Ms. Andrews and I met with Optus regarding the interest rates on funds. That was at the direction of the Finance Committee, and we were successful in that meeting. And for operations for Ms. Bowers, monitored bus stops and shelters on Gervais Street, State Street, Highway 378 and Airport Boulevard, prepared and presented reports for the Transportation Penny Advisory Committee meeting, and attended several meetings with Warner Transportation Consulting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Andrews.
Good morning, all. My report starts at page 165. It reports what we do as a department, finance, IT, and HR. Page 166, as Andy hinted to, the Comet did achieve its, I think, 5th year in a row award from GFOA for our finance report. So again, thank you all for helping me achieve that. And if you have not already responded to your FY24 audit request, please do so. And that's the end.
Good afternoon again. The reports for the regulatory compliance and DBE, pages 169 through 175. And I would just like to read through the section on the DBE reports, which starts on page 172. And this data is relates as of October 31st. Approximately $90.4 million for paid to vendors with DBE goals. And of this amount, we received $22.4 million, which equates to 24.8%. This is a slightly less than the 25% goal. And one of the factors is that one of our DBEs ended their contract And that was for bus shelters and benches, but we have already selected a new vendor, new DBE firm to assist in that effort. So we should see future payments in some of our future reports. And then on starting on page 174 through 175 is relevant to RATP data and the contract is paid for DBE firms. And this reflects, this is a cumulative data, and it goes back to July 1st of 2020, and it goes up through October 31st. And as of October 31st, RATP data had paid approximately $17.5 million for DBE firms, which equates to 21.6%. And this is within that 20.06% DBE goal. And on page 175 is just information that reflects the current fiscal year. This is the report of the regulatory DBE update, and I'll be available to answer any questions.
We made our DBE go entire year, is that correct?
For the entire year, we have well, the overall agency, we set a goal of 25%, and for the fiscal year, for the full year, we met the goal. As for now, we're into a new fiscal year. We're looking at the month, this is up through October. And it's just that we're at our overall goal is 25%, and we're at 24.8%, just a little bit less than the 25%. But for the year, we met the 25% goal.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
To add on to that, ever since RATP Deb has been here, we've met the goal.
I don't know, we thank you for that,
We need to thank Mr. Cook and his staff.
Public Information Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My report is found on pages 176 to 184, and it includes the advertising that we have done over the past month. I would like to call your attention to the future events that we're going to do. We have plans to have a public kind of drop-in early February. I think it's February 7th, it's on a Friday, from 12 to 2, just to say thank you for supporting the penny. It's basically going to be cookies and punch and probably some giveaways at Comment Central. So that will be one of the things that we're doing for this year coming up. The pertinent things are highlighted. That concludes my report. Happy holidays.
Do we have anything? Nothing but executive. Okay. I guess either we go and eat lunch and or adjourn. Which one do we want to do?
Yeah, we do have executive session.
Transfer. So you wanted them to report out?
Come back.
No, they
What is that issue?
okay. Yeah.
Do y'all want to take that up in executive session? I suggest you do that now. That way you can adjourn the meeting and everybody can enjoy. Yeah. I didn't know that was on the agenda for today.
We need it. No. Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.